For the first project, I'm going to grab this plastic bowl that I had left over from Dollar Tree. This was in the party section, and then some scrap rope. I'm going to take my scrap rope and just simply glue it around the edge of the bowl, starting with a small amount and then just adding small bits of glue as I go around. For this one, you probably want to add more glue than you typically would because you do want to make sure that that rope does stay in place. So I'm going to be going every few, I guess, inches, half an inch or so, and just make sure that that rope is good and solid. The great thing about this rope, because it is kind of that softer cotton material versus the harder nautical rope, this will kind of squeeze around the edge of the bowl itself. So once you've got that completely covered, then we're going to take it outside and give it 2 coats of my terracotta spray paint. I love this spray paint, and terracotta seems to be the hottest color this summer, so I will link it in the description box for you below. You can find it on Amazon and a lot of different hardware stores. Once everything was dry, I took it inside and I'm going to give it a dusting of antiquing wax from Waverly. I love this antiquing wax, and all I'm literally going to do is just start painting right around the edge. I'm not going to really worry about whether I get it on too heavy or not because I am going to go through and wipe this away with a clean cloth. Also, what I love about this antiquing wax is because it never is really permanent. If you do hit an area that is just too harsh or too heavy, you can just continue to blend it with a dry brush or even a dry cloth or towel, and it will take away some of that bright white and blend it a little bit better. Once I was happy with my terracotta bowl, then I added some wine corks about 3/4 of the way up. Then I added some of my moss rocks here that I grabbed from Dollar Tree. I'm going to also add in some Dollar Tree rocks because I want to give this a little bit more depth and a little bit more realness. I then topped it off with some succulents from Dollar Tree, and this is what it looks like when it's all done. I love this so much. It looks like a heavy piece of terracotta pottery, and it only cost about $6 total to recreate. And for my next project, I'm going to be using some of these 3D wreath forms that were scraps. As you can see, this one here is broken. And then I had one of the backings from the triangle-shaped shelves or houses that are from Dollar Tree. And then I had some scrap contact paper and some of these wood skewers. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my triangle and cover this in that wood contact paper. I thought about painting it, but I thought that the wood would actually be a really cool contrast for this. So I'm just going to take my contact paper, cut it out in the shape of my triangle here, and then literally just cover this front and back. That way I have a nice clean wooden looking triangle. On the 3D wreath form, they have these little hooks that kind of help hold everything together. We're not going to need those, so I'm just going to twist them off with my pliers. These, by the way, are lineman pliers, and they are fantastic. They cut through everything, and I will link them in the description box below if you want to check them out. For the triangle itself, I wanted to make sure that I had a ring that was small enough to cover the triangle completely or to give me that flexibility there. So now I'm going to take my ring and just glue it down to my triangle itself. To do this, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue in each one of those corners, and then I am going to add a little strip of duct tape along each one of those as well, just to help hold everything together and keep it nice and sturdy. The next thing I'm going to do is take my wooden dowel rod here that I have. This is kind of a squared off dowel rod that was in the scrap drawer, and I am just going to mark it where I'm going to be drilling some holes. I didn't film this part, but it literally was just drilling a hole in each side of that, and then just connecting the wire in like so. I love the way that this looks, and I think that this is coming together very nicely. I'm going to be creating this kind of a boho inspired wall hanging, and to do that, I am going to be taking some of these skewers, and I do want to cut them down to the appropriate size. Now, to do that, I can certainly use a small saw if I wanted to, or a handsaw, but I have this mini miter saw that I love so much. It is the perfect size for my craft room, and it literally cuts through wooden dowel rods and all kinds of other materials. I do have this linked below as well, and you can find this on Amazon, Once I had those skewers kind of laid out approximately the way I was thinking everything would look, I am going to take some antiquing wax and just cover these very lightly and very sporadically. I don't want to completely cover these. I want them to kind of look like they're a little washed out wood, and that's why I'm kind of using that gigantic brush. I'm actually using that gigantic brush because I did not have anything smaller. So forgive me for that. Now for the yarn, this is yarn from Dollar Tree, and all I'm going to do is just tie a knot in the center of my dowel rod there, and then I'm going to start wrapping it around. I kind of want this to have 3 pieces at the bottom that are kind of sticking out to give this a little bit of a boho vibe, I guess. And I'm going to start by putting a thick kind of row of my yarn down the middle. And then once I had the thickness that I liked, then I split it off like you see there, adding a little bit of glue on each side of that to kind of help keep those in place. And then I added a second one and then a third one until I had the desired look that I was going after. Once I was happy with the way that the yarn looked, it was time to start connecting everything. All I did was take my skewers here that I had used the antiquing wax on, and I snipped them on the edge with a kind of at a 45-degree angle, so they would stick a little bit better to that wood dowel rod. And as you can see, all I'm doing is adding a little bit of hot glue and literally just kind of gluing them at a little bit of an angle. And then once those are set and in place, it's time to go ahead and connect them to that wooden triangle, or that faux wood triangle, I should say. For that part, all I'm going to do is flip that over again on the back side, and then once again, kind of figure out where I wanted those placed. I added some hot glue and some duct tape and made sure that everything was good and solid. Now that everything is dry, I've got it hanging on the wall. I did add some yarn at the top of that just to hang this from. I really love the way that this looks. I think it's super cool and very cute. Also, if you wanted to add some different colored yarn, perhaps even some wooden beads, you could really make this your own and make it very, very unique for your own home. And for the next project, I'm going to be using some of this rope that I had. This is kind of a nylon rope that's in the hardware section. I also had one of these leftover signs from a Dollar Tree haul. This had like a little succulent or something in it. And then these pieces of metal that are left over from another Dollar Tree sign, they do happen to fit the same size here. Just not sure I'm going to use those. I pulled out that nail that was in the center there. That way it wouldn't stick me when I was using this for my DIY project. And now I'm just going to take this outside and spray paint it. I gave this 2 coats of my white Rust-Oleum spray paint. And as you can see, it definitely took 2 coats because this wood, or whatever this composite is, was actually really, really hard to cover. I then took my rope from the hardware section and just cut 4 pieces that were the same length. Yes, I know I need new scissors. If there is a scissor sponsor out there that would like to send me a brand new pair of scissors, I am happy to take them. Then I went ahead and just glued my 4 pieces of rope in the 4 corners, kind of like so. I'm going to be covering these up with rocks and succulents, so it's not really going to matter. This is very, very lightweight, and for this next part, I'm just going to weigh it down with my lineman pliers, and then I'm going to take a piece of this kind of a boho-inspired ribbon that you can find at Dollar Tree and use that as a decorative touch at the top. I'm going to take my 4 pieces and using those lineman pliers just to help weigh everything down and keep it even. I'm then just going to wrap that rope or that trim right around the top there and just kind of glue it into place. Squeeze it just a little bit after it does cool down a little bit so I didn't burn my hands. And then I just tied it in a knot kind of towards the top and used that as my hanging piece. And this is what it looks like when it's done. I just added some Dollar Tree rocks and succulents and some of those moss rocks again and created this cute little hanging succulent planter that I really, really like. And for my last project, this is a growler that I had left over from this place in my hometown. I hadn't used it in quite a while. It had been sitting on the back porch. So I decided to go ahead and use it. And then I'm also going to use this Dollar Tree twine. At Kirkland's and Pottery Barn, I've been seeing white pottery being very, very popular with a added kind of rope twist to it or rope twine to it. So I thought this could actually work really well. So the first thing I did was, of course, clean this bottle because it had been sitting out on my back porch for quite a while. And then I took it outside and gave it 2 coats of my Rust-Oleum spray paint. Once again, this spray paint is fantastic. Rust-Oleum is probably one of my favorite, and it just took 2 coats before this was completely covered, and it took no time for it to dry, which I also really, really like about the Rust-Oleum paint. Now that everything is dry, I'm taking it back inside, and I'm just going to use the curves on the bottle and my hot glue gun there just to attach the twine. All I'm going to do is attach the twine anywhere you see kind of this lip. I also want it around the handle and around the lower part of the neck of the bottle. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of figure out where to start, really. And I decided to go ahead and actually start down below that lip. I'm going to go ahead and add a fairly generous amount of hot glue, and then I am just going to wrap this around like so. I do go in every once in a while and just add a couple dabs of hot glue just to make sure that everything is holding in place right. And as you can see, this is pretty easy to do when you do have a lip of some kind on your bottle because it does help hold it into place. I added a fairly large amount of twine in this section and then did cut it off and started to work on the neck of the bottle itself also. Once I had the neck in a position that I liked, I then took my twine and started to wrap it around the handle. This part was probably a little more tedious just because it is a little harder to work with. I just took a very long piece of twine that I thought would be the right size for this and literally just started wrapping kind of like what you see here. Also, I did use some of that hot glue and added a couple dots of hot glue kind of down the handle a little bit and spread it around, and then just kind of kept wiping or wrapping that twine until the handle was completely covered. Then I did want to go ahead and just thicken everything up a little bit more. So I went in and added some more twine around the top and also around the bottom piece, kind of like you see me doing here. Once that was all set, then I did trim this down, and I wanted to cover up that hole where the handle was. You could certainly put that handle or that stopper back on the bottle if you wanted to, but I'm going to be using mine as a planter. So instead, I'm going to take some of this twine or this, this decorative ribbon that I grabbed from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap it around and just glue it into place. I love the way that that covered, and it fits very, very perfectly within the rest of the bottle design itself. And once it was all done, this is what it looked like. I love the way this looks. I added a Dollar Tree faux plant to the top of it, and I think this is the perfect setting and grouping for my display. I am literally going into my junk drawer and my scrap drawer. I don't throw anything away. So I have these 2 crates that were left over from a project that clearly broke. But I do have all the parts, so I think I can salvage these for this idea. And then I have these 2 backs from those, those springtime houses that Dollar Tree had. I busted the back out of them for a different project that I did, and I saved them. So I have these, and they're the same size, so that could be a possibility. I have always random Jenga blocks, and then this is a package of some dowel rods that were left over from a project that I had from Dollar General. The first thing I did was grab my 2 crates and go ahead and glue them back together. They're kind of rough, but that's okay. The Gorilla Wood glue worked really, really well and held them together nicely. And then it was time to peel these stickers off the back of these Dollar Tree houses. Have you ever noticed that these stickers that you always try to peel off have the most craziest glue on them? I wish I knew what glue that was. Then it was time to kind of figure out my placement of everything and kind of where I wanted to align my crates. Then I just took some Gorilla Wood glue again and just glued them together. And then I set them aside to dry. I also glued the side of the houses onto the toolbox. And now that everything was dry, I could go ahead and remove my Dollar Tree clamps and just make sure everything was good and stable. So then I could start to measure out the dowel rod that I was going to be using as the handle of my toolbox. Now, because tools are so few and far between nowadays. It's important to go ahead and make proper measurements. You can see here where I put that little black line with the Sharpie. I went ahead and did this slightly bigger than what I need because I figured it was better to have to sand it down than to actually have to cut another rod. And I just used my Dollar Tree saw for that. And then I cut it, and it actually was the right size. So I wanted to go ahead and just sand this down and make it as smooth as possible. My cuts are not perfectly straight by any means. Of course, not much else in my life is perfectly straight either. And as you can see here, the handle fit perfectly. I was pleasantly surprised. So I just took some wood glue and just glued it down on either side. Again, just using my Gorilla wood glue and wiping off just kind of any excess there with my finger. I started to just hold it for a little while, and then I wanted to do some other things. So I just weighed it down with my Gorilla glue while it was drying. And then once everything was dried, this is kind of what I was looking at. I really think this is super sweet, but it's kind of a little baby ugly right now, so it needs a nice paint job. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of make this look like it's an old, like, galvanized metal toolbox. So I'm going to kind of peel away any of these excess papers that might be laying down around that my sander didn't get. And then I'm going to take it outside and paint it. Okay, guys, this is my attempt at being like a director of photography, I guess, and trying to get a cool aerial shot for you guys. Clearly it didn't work, but as you can see, I am painting it. I'm using a galvanized metal compound paint. It's actually a spray paint that you use for like a chain link fence, for example. It was a freebie that my neighbor had given me, and I just barely had enough to do one coat on this toolbox, but it actually worked out perfectly because then I took the toolbox inside and I used some of this Craft Smart antiquing wax. And I love this wax because it's a gel, first of all, so it goes on nice and it covers really well. And then I just took the toolbox and just kind of thought about like where the most wear would be, on the handles, on the sides, on the inside even, and just applied the wax directly on top of that paint. And as you can see here, I'm just kind of rubbing it in on the corners, on the edges. And then I literally would just flip over the cloth and just wipe it away. So when I did that, this is kind of what it ended up looking like in the end. And I thought that this was super cool. Now, here's another trick that I learned. If you take 6 of these Jenga blocks and stand them up like I'm showing you right here, they fit perfectly. Actually, I think it's only 5 of the blocks, but they fit perfectly inside. So if you wanted to put dividers in your little toolbox, you could simply by using some of your Jenga blocks. Now, option 1 for my little toolbox is to store some paints in it. The thickness of the crates is actually about the same size as a Dollar Tree glass candle holder. So it works perfectly for this because you can put some brushes in it, you could put your favorite paints in it, or maybe the paints that you use the most and very often. Or you could actually use it as a toolbox for your tools that you might grab a whole lot when you're working on a DIY project. And then another option, of course, is to put some flowers in it and use it as a decor piece. It's a cute little toolbox. It looks like an old galvanized metal toolbox, some nautical rope. Mine happens to be this big bundle that I picked up at Amazon for, I think it was around $5 or $6. You could certainly use Dollar Tree nautical rope for this. And then also you're going to grab one of these shallow garden bowls that I picked up in the kind of garden section at Dollar Tree where they have the plants and the succulents and stuff. And then through the magic of YouTube, you're going to paint your bowl black like I did here. I just used a Rust-Oleum flat black paint. And then you're going to take your rope and you're going to coil it on the inside. So what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing a scrap piece of cardboard. I got my finger protectors because I am notoriously known for burning my fingers. And I am just going to create a coil just using some glue and just kind of working it around. I will say that this rope from Amazon is definitely stiffer and it's harder to work with, especially when you're first starting your kind of disc or your kind of circle coil here. So you'll use a lot of glue definitely in the beginning, and then as it starts to get larger and as it starts to hold together, you'll see that it comes together certainly a lot easier. And I will say those finger protectors, those pretty pink finger protectors, man, did they make a difference, because it saved my fingertips for sure. Now, after you've got a disc that's about this big, I don't know how big this is. It will cover the bottom of the bowl, though, you'll see in just a minute. Then you can go ahead and just add some hot glue to the back of the rope, and then just glue this directly down to your bowl. Definitely center it and make sure that it's in there. Mine was not perfectly centered when I ended up gluing it down, but, you know, hey, it's a handmade craft, right? That's just the way it happens sometimes. So as you can see, I'm putting a generous amount of my hot glue on there, and then I am literally just going to stick this down to the center of my bowl, and then I'm going to finish wrapping about halfway up with the nautical rope all around the bowl until I get, I would say, kind of where that lip or that kind of straighter edge of the round bowl, if that's making sense, starts to kind of flatten. So hopefully that makes sense in the picture below. Then after everything dries, this becomes the ultimate dad bowl. You can throw your wallet down, throw your keys down, you can put it on a coffee table. It's got a really cool kind of industrial vibe look, and I really, really like this. And for our next project, we're going to call this Dad's paint station. And what I like about this is you're going to grab 2 of these Dollar Tree trays. I grabbed the 2 that were just kind of more tray looking, I guess you could say. And then I grabbed some of these paint sticks that I picked up when I went to Home Depot. And then some Gorilla wood glue. I love this. And then a wooden skewer. Anytime I'm using Gorilla wood glue, I always put the glue on with a skewer. Because it's such a big bottle and I can be a little heavy-handed, it's just a good tip for me. Now, if you see this kind of rounded edge on your paint sticks, make sure that all of those are painting in the same direction and preferably pointing down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stick the stick right on the corner of the wooden tray, and I'm going to repeat that on all 4 sides. Now, I absolutely love these spring-loaded clamps or these clips that they sell at Dollar Tree. These things are fantastic. If you can get your hands on these, they're in the hardware department. Grab these. They have smaller pink versions that you'll see that I also have from the Crafter Square section, but these larger red ones are fantastic. Go ahead and wipe away any of the excess glue, and then just repeat this on all 4 sides of the top part of your paint tower, and it will look like this. So you're going to let everything dry, and then once that's dry, you'll repeat this process kind of for the lower part of your paint tray. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our other Dollar Tree tray, and remember how I recommended that you take all of those kind of rounded edges, or that little divot, I don't know what it's called, in the paint stick itself. That is where you're going to line up your lower tray. It's going to give you a little lift off of the bottom, like kind of giving you a little feet on the bottom of the tray. And you're going to go ahead and just repeat the same process with the glue. This is a little harder, and this is also where the skewer really helps, because you can get into that kind of a tighter edge. And then again, I'm going to go ahead and glue this together with the Gorilla wood glue, and then I'm simply going to take another one of those clips and hold it into place, and then repeat it on the other 3 sides of the lower part of our I'm calling it the Dad's paint tray, I guess. So after everything has dried and it is set up nicely, you can then remove your clips. And then what you want to do is kind of give your legs almost like a 3-dimensional look, I guess. And so you'll go ahead and you'll take your paint sticks and then apply it to the front side of your trays. Again, using the skewer, a little bit of the Gorilla glue, and you can see I'm still even pretty heavy-handed with it. But so you'll repeat this, and you'll do this on all 4 corners of your paint tower. And it will kind of look like this on the one side. And then you'll just keep working all the way around until you've got the other sides, or all 4 sides, kind of covered with that secondary stick. So hopefully the visuals are more or easier to understand because clearly my voice is not working very well tonight. After everything dried, I took it outside and I used my Rust-Oleum hammered silver spray paint, which I absolutely love. And I gave everything, I would say, about 1.5 coatings maybe. This wood took the spray paint really, really well. And I kind of wanted it to have that old, like, military metal kind of cabinet looking feel to it. And I think that that hammered silver really, really worked well for that. And this is what it looks like on my desk. I mean, I'm not a dad, but I'm going to be using this for all of my paints. I mean, how cute is that? And it fits perfectly with almost any kind of decor structure. I mean, literally you could paint this any color that you wanted it. For me and for my workshop, it kind of has a very cool industrial vibe. And again, I could see where this would be great in any dad's workshop. I think he'd be proud to store any kind of tools or really any kind of goodies on this. And for our next project, this is actually really, really easy. You're going to take one of these USA 4th of July signs that you can find at Dollar Tree right now. Go ahead and remove these stars and set these aside for future use for another project. They will come off really, really easy. I was able to just kind of use my fingernail to pull them off, except for this last one. I almost pulled my fingernail off completely. And then you're going to take this, and even though we removed them from that one side, you're actually going to use this flat side. So go ahead and remove all of the twine, and then you're going to take this outside and give it a really good sanding. I happen to have this great electrical sander that I used, and what was really great about this is that it annihilated all of that red glitter. So once everything was sanded and I wiped it off, I took everything outside and just used a flat black spray paint. And I didn't completely cover it because I wanted kind of that aged look of that cardboard backing kind of coming through. After everything was dry, then I took my chalk paint here. It's kind of like an off-white color, almost a gray color, and I painted a number on it. And number 4 is actually the number that is significant to me. And so anytime I'm painting a number, especially using like a squared off brush like this, and I will just go ahead and just paint the number as if that brush was just flowing with the paint. That way it kind of gives me almost like a template, if that makes sense, because then I can go back in and I can easily fill in the lines or, you know, color within the lines and make that number look as good as possible. I am not a painter by any means. If I had a giant number 4 stencil, I would have totally used this. Again, the number 4 is significant to me because that just happens to be a lucky number for me. But think about it, like if your husband or your dad or maybe your brother, whoever's the dad in the family, maybe they've got 4 kids, or maybe they've got 4 dogs, or maybe they've got 8 kids. You could really put whatever number you wanted on this. And then just to kind of give it that industrial kind of look, again, I went ahead and put the number symbol down at the bottom of my tag. That way it would just kind of tie everything together, giving it that really cool industrial vibe. Then after everything dried, I took a piece of nautical rope. I used the cloth nautical rope. Honestly, I think I would have liked the regular nautical rope better for it, but this happened to be an extra piece that I had on hand, and I'm trying to conserve my supplies as much as possible and not go out a whole lot. So I just strung this up, and then what's great about this tag is it could literally be hanging on a wall. It could hang on a doorway. I mean, there's really lots of different options and very cool things that you can do with this tag. And again, it's just a cool decorative piece, but it's a great way to remind Dad of, you know, his responsibilities and how many kids he has, or dogs, or cats. He could be a cat dad like I am.